few weeks ago, the United States Justice Department quietly took down 13 websites. On the surface, every one of them looked completely normal. Some called themselves global advisory firms. Some posed as research institutes. Others claimed to be human resources, analytics, or security consulting companies. They had job openings. They had company bias. They had professional-looking headshots. And they pushed their listings out onto platforms like LinkedIn, where millions of people go to look for work. But according to the FBI, these companies were never trying to fill jobs. They were trying to find people who could be used. I want to walk you through what they were really doing, because once you see the pattern, you'll never look at a great remote opportunity the same way again. The targets were specific: current and former US government officials, military personnel, defense contractors, people holding security clearances, people who touch sensitive information. The bait was tailored to them. Listings for consultants, analysts, international affairs researchers, defense policy researchers. You apply, and then it starts a paid trial report. An online interview, a consulting arrangement, and step-by-step they ask you for non-public information, internal assessments, exclusive analysis. The Chinese embassy in Washington responded the way it always does, calling the whole thing fabricated and dismissing it as malicious slander. That denial is about as surprising as the sun coming up. Here's the difference though. Beijing has every incentive to invent a story. Washington doesn't sit around dreaming up fake espionage cases for fun. And when you line this seizure up against the cases America has already prosecuted over the past several years, you stop seeing 13 isolated websites. You start seeing a system that's been running for a long time. When most people hear the word spy, they picture a man in a trench coat swapping a black briefcase in a hotel room, or someone dangling from the ceiling at midnight, dodging infrared sensors, breaking into an office to grab a file. That's the cinema version. The real thing looks like a job, a decent sounding remote gig. Sometimes it even wears a respectable face, a foreign policy think tank reaching out to collaborate, or a consulting firm willing to pay you to write up some analysis. China's intelligence recruitment has been repackaged as a modern career opportunity, and this disguises the whole point. Back in March 2025, Reuters reported on a network tied to Chinese tech companies that was trying to recruit US federal employees who'd just been laid off. Think about how sharp that timing was. The US government was downsizing and restructuring. A lot of people who'd worked in agencies and tech and policy shops suddenly didn't have a job. And if you've just lost your income, a well-paid consulting offer is going to look pretty good, especially when the pitch is built to flatter you. You don't need to relocate, just write some policy analysis remotely. Your government experience is incredibly valuable. We need people who actually understand how Washington works. It all sounds reasonable. Here's the problem. The moment you carry government experience, a defense background, an industry network, or even just working knowledge of how a particular office runs day to day, you already have intelligence value. Recruitment doesn't begin with someone asking you to steal the crown jewels. A lot of the time, what they want first is your judgment. Who gets along with whom, what your department has been arguing about lately, where a particular arms sale is really stuck, which policies haven't been announced but are already rumored internally, which official is the hardest line on China, and which one is the softest, what company is quietly developing, which researcher is under financial pressure, which retired official still has a deep Rolodex. None of those things necessarily carry a classified stamp, but to a hostile foreign power like the Chinese Communist Party, every one of them is a valuable piece of the puzzle. Take Kevin Malroy, former CIA. He left government in 2012, tried to start his own business, and it failed. On his LinkedIn profile, he'd laid out his CIA background, his time at the Defense Intelligence Agency, and his Chinese language skills in full detail. To an algorithm and a recruiter looking for targets, that profile screamed two things: high value and short on money. In 2016, Chinese operatives reached out on LinkedIn posing as a headhunter and a scholar, dangling enormous consulting fees. And by spring 2017, they'd lured him to Shanghai, sat him down, and handed him a pre-configured encrypted phone. Because he was that strapped for cash, he made 2 trips to China in March and April of that year, agreed to spy for Beijing, scanned multiple top-secret US military documents onto an SD card, and sold them. Melroy was convicted in conspiring to deliver US defense secrets to China and sentenced to 20 years. Then there is Shapur Monian, a former US Army helicopter pilot who went on to work for defense contractors. Nobody approached him in some shadowy underground bar. He was contacted through a job site by someone pretending to be a technical recruiter. He ended up taking several $1,000s in exchange for passing aviation information from his defense contractor employer to people connected to the Chinese government. Then he lied about it during a security review. In 2022, he got 20 months. This is actually the part people underestimate. Real recruitment never opens with "betray your country." It opens with "would you be willing to write a report for us?" Then, could the report include a little more inside observation? Then, you used to work in that department. You probably know things the public sources don't show, right? And then the final point is, none of this is officially classified anyway. It's just your professional read, one at a time. First you take the money and enjoy the perks, then you get comfortable using their encrypted messaging app, then you start feeling like you've got a real, trusting, long-term relationship with this client, and this client has been very good to you. And that's when you sink in deep. The textbook example is a Singaporean named Junwei Yeo, Dixon Yeo. Yeo wasn't simply bought off to hand over a document. He played a role further up in the chain, finding people for China's intelligence, screening them, assessing them. According to the Justice Department, he was directed to set up a fake consulting company, even using a name close to a well-known American consulting firm, and post jobs on online platforms. He received more than 400 resumes. Around 90% came from the US military or government personnel, and many of them held security clearances. That's not random phishing, that's a precision filtering system. Use a fake company to pull in resumes. Sort for who has a clearance, who's done defense work, who's sat inside government office, who might have touched something valuable. Then use platforms like LinkedIn to keep finding more people with similar backgrounds. And the platform's own algorithm starts recommending fresh targets to you. The algorithm built to help people find jobs gets turned around and used to help intelligence officers find people who can be bought. And Yeo didn't just read resumes, he probed. Are you unhappy at work? Are you under financial strain? Do you have family burdens? Are you open to a more personal relationship with a stranger? Because you should understand that what an intelligence service is really measuring isn't only how much you know, it's how easily you can be bought. Are you short on cash? Just laid off? Resentful toward the agency you used to serve? Are you desperate to prove your expertise? Would you write a deep, detailed report for a sketchy client you can't quite identify for a few $1,000s? That whole process is a compliance test wearing the costume of a job interview. When the FBI took down those 13 domains, they spelled out the mechanics. The fake sites used stolen or invented identities, AI-generated photos or fake employees, company pages built to look real. Then they posted listings on LinkedIn and other job platforms, or linked back to the sites. They promised payment, test applicants for work-related reports and sensitive information, and hid their identities and money trails behind cryptocurrency, online payment apps, and tools like Telegram. Some of these outfits, the fake headhunters, the fake consultancies, the fake think tanks, would ask a job seeker to try out a report, pay them a few $1,000s, and walk away with high-value intelligence at a bargain price. And this isn't just an American-only problem. The Five Eyes, the US, UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, have all publicly warned the Chinese military intelligence is using job platforms to do exactly this, posing as private companies, think tanks, HR firms, or consultancy agencies, advertising for foreign policy analysts and defense researchers, targeting government, military, clearance holders, and people in sensitive industries. In the United Kingdom, MI5 went as far as naming 2 fake LinkedIn headhunter accounts tied to China's Ministry of State Security. According to the accounts that were reaching out to members of parliament, members of the House of Lords, and people across the political world. Security Minister Dan Jarvis described it bluntly as a covert and calculated attempt by a foreign power to interfere in Britain's sovereign affairs for its own gain. The approach was the same playbook. Don't demand classified files up front, build a long-term relationship through consulting, freelancing, and opportunities first. Then slowly collect the non-public internal material. The most recent case worth your attention is Australia's Alexander Zergo, a business consultant. While he was working in Shanghai, he was contacted on LinkedIn by someone calling herself Evelyn, who claimed to be from a Chinese think tank looking for paid consulting work. He started writing reports for two people known as Ken and Evelyn on sensitive subjects: Australian defense, security, politics, mining, AUKUS, the Quad, and took cash for them. Zergo's defense was that most of what he handed over was public information, just packaged into reports. The jury convicted him anyway of reckless foreign interference. That verdict gets right to the heart of it. People love to ask, if the information is public, what's the crime? The crime isn't only about whether the raw data is public. It's also about whether you knew that the person you were dealing with might be a foreign intelligence officer and chose to organize, fill in, analyze, and prioritize the information for them anyway, adding the judgment you've picked up from your network, your career, and your time inside the circle. Anyone can see public data, but when someone who understands the industry, knows how government works, knows the defense system, and knows the political scene, takes that scattered public data and reshapes it into a report with direction, judgment, and priorities, the value changes completely. Think of it as a pile of jigsaw pieces dumped onto the floor. Handing someone the loose pieces is one thing. Assembling the puzzle, circling the most important section in a red pen, and telling them exactly where to look, that's selling intelligence. So when the United States seizes these sites, this isn't a baseless accusation, and America isn't the only one saying it. Counterintelligence agencies across the US, Australia, Germany, the UK, Canada, New Zealand, and much of Europe have all caught the same thing. China's intelligence work is leaning less and less on the old-fashioned spy and more on an integrated machine. Consulting firms, research institutes, academic exchanges, HR platforms, online gig work, social media, cryptocurrency, digital payments, all wired together into one system that can cast a wide net, filter cheaply, and cultivate high-value sources at scale. The thing to watch for today isn't just a direct threat or an obvious request to break the law. Far more often, the first thing they offer you is perfectly reasonable sounding partnership. And slowly you realize what that partnership is really trying to trade for. Not just your labor, your positions, your independence, your voice. Sometimes even whether you're willing to abandon the direction you started with. When you see a commentator's stance suddenly swing for no clear reason, the logic underneath can look a lot like this. No single step looks like treason, but add the steps together and you can end up with a complete recruitment chain. The old methods are still there. You have those events, the dinners, cultivated associations, the galas, the courting of community leaders. Running alongside them now is a massive online recruitment net. And this operation is industrialized and globalized. Fake companies, fake websites, fake resumes, fake AI headshots, fake research projects, fake job openings, fake payment accounts. This process you can copy and paste into one country after another. The underlying method is basically the same one China runs at its Southeast Asian fraud circles. Screen for the people who'll cooperate, then take control one step at a time. Former US officials, Australian consultants, scholars around the world, Britain's parliamentary and policy circles, clearance holders in Canada and New Zealand, all of them are targets for the same system. And here's the most dangerous part. This machine isn't built only to find genuine traitors. It's far better at finding the people who think they're just freelancing, just writing a report, just offering professional opinions, just earning a little money on the side, just doing a job that looks completely normal. Stay sharp and look after each other, because freedom is not free. Thank you for watching, and if you liked the video, please press like, subscribe, and share. This is Stan. I see you in the next one.